The morning sun reflected off the glass facade of the city bank. Tom stopped at the corner, pulled his mask tight against his nose, and checked his watch. The second hand ticked in perfect rhythm with his pulse. He stood still for a moment, letting the crowd pass him by, a ghost in the morning rush. He took a slow, deep breath, tasting the metallic tang of city exhaust and ozone. This was the moment. Every calculation, every movement he had practiced in the dark of his room for weeks, converged right here. He reached out, fingers brushing the cold, smooth metal of the heavy side door. He felt the weight of the structure, the vibration of the vault timers humming deep behind the reinforced concrete. He was a man with a plan, and the universe felt aligned in his favor. He adjusted his stance, centered his weight, and gripped the handle. The lock felt solid, unyielding, but he knew the mechanism. He stood there for a heartbeat, savoring the silence before the storm, completely convinced that his long streak of misfortune had finally run its course. He looked at the watch one last time, turned the handle, and stepped toward the door. Tom pushed the heavy door. His lead foot cleared the threshold, but his trailing heel struck something soft and slick. A discarded banana peel, discarded carelessly on the polished marble, vanished beneath his weight. Tom went rigid, arms windmilling as his center of gravity betrayed him. He slammed onto the floor with a bone-jarring thud. His momentum carried him forward, heels skidding across the wax until he collided with a towering stack of metal cleaning buckets. The impact sounded like a detonating cannon. Buckets clattered and spun, bouncing off the walls, while the mop bucket overturned, spilling soapy water across the lobby. In the sudden, ringing silence that followed the crash, a red light began to strobe on the wall. The silent alarm. A high-pitched, piercing wail cut through the air, vibrating the glass windows. Tom scrambled to his feet, hands slipping on the wet marble, his breath hitching in his throat. People turned. Security guards began to sprint from the far corner of the lobby. He did not look back. He shoved his way through the swinging doors, hitting the alleyway, with his heart hammering against his ribs. The siren's scream following him into the morning air. Tom sprinted through the alley, lungs burning, until he spotted a sleek car idling near the curb. He yanked the handle, dived into the driver's seat, and slammed the door. He reached for the ignition, but his hands slapped against a thick pile of training manuals and police radio equipment. The interior was packed with gear. A nearby officer stepped out of the station, eyes locked on Tom. He floored the gas, tires screeching against the pavement, and veered blindly into the city zoo. He ditched the car, vaulted over a wooden fence, and scrambled into the dense foliage of the monkey enclosure. He crouched, gasping, waiting for the sirens to fade. A capuchin monkey dropped from a branch, landed on his shoulder, and snatched the duffel bag from his grip. The animal sprinted up a metal pole, chattering. Tom lunged for the bag, but the monkey pulled it out of reach. He clawed at the pole, trying to climb, but the creature pelted him with pieces of fruit until he lost his footing and tumbled backward into the dirt. The bag was gone. He sat in the dust, empty-handed, while the sirens grew louder. Tom crawled toward the perimeter of the zoo, his eyes scanning the street for anything that could mask his identity. A pizza delivery bike leaned against a brick wall, the engine still warm. He checked the alley, grabbed the discarded delivery box, and pulled the uniform over his frame. He pedaled hard, his legs pumping until his muscles screamed, putting distance between himself and the zoo. He checked the receipt taped to the box, turned a sharp corner, and pulled up to a heavy industrial building. He knocked on the door, his heart drumming against his chest, expecting a quiet customer. The door swung open before his knuckles could strike again. A room full of uniformed officers turned in unison, glasses raised in celebration of a shift change. The smell of stale coffee and floor wax hit him. They cheered as he set the hot box down, their laughter echoing off the lockers. Tom kept his head down, his pulse spiking as an officer took a step toward him. He did not wait for a tip or a signature. He spun, bolted for the exit, and vanished into the shadows of the sidewalk before anyone could get a clear look at his face. Tom ducked into the museum entrance, the heavy doors clicking shut behind him to dampen the sound of the city. The interior was cool, smelling of dust and centuries-old stone. He crept forward, his boots silent against the polished floor, aiming for the deep shadows cast by the T-Rex skeleton in the center of the hall. He moved cautiously, keeping his back to the wall, but his belt loop caught on a thin, taut support wire connected to the display base. He did not notice at first. He pivoted, pulling the wire tight. A sharp, metallic ping echoed through the hall. The massive fossil structure groaned, a sound like grinding tectonic plates, before it began to sway. Tom spun around, eyes widening as the giant skull tilted, plunging downward with a thunderous, deafening clatter that shook the floorboards. Debris rained down around him. He ducked, his hands shielding his head, as the giant jaw snapped shut inches from his boots. He scrambled backward on his hands and knees, chest heaving, his pulse hammering against his ribs. He did not look back. He sprinted toward the main exit, convinced the ancient, jagged bones were reaching out to drag him back into the dark. Tom burst onto the sidewalk, his breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind him, a police cruiser cut across the lane, tires screeching against the asphalt. A K9 unit barked, the sound sharp and rhythmic, snapping at his heels. Before he could turn the corner, a flock of pigeons descended, wings flapping against his face, pecking at his head. He swiped at the air, blind and stumbling, ducking into the nearest side alley to escape the frenzy. The alley led back out to a chaotic intersection where traffic surged like a river. An elderly woman stood at the very edge of the curb, waving her cane frantically at the oncoming flow of metal. Tom shoved past her, his shoulder clipping her arm. He reacted on instinct, reaching out to steady her, and yanked her backward just as a city bus roared past the spot where she had stood a second before. The metal side of the vehicle brushed the air where her face had been. The roar of the bus died down, replaced by a sudden, stunned silence from the nearby pedestrians. Then, the sound of clapping erupted. A crowd gathered instantly, pointing and shouting. Tom stood frozen, his chest heaving, as the onlookers surged forward to praise his sudden, life-saving intervention. The crowd tightened around him, their voices a blur of praise and confusion. Tom blinked, still catching his breath, as a path opened in the center of the throng. The mayor emerged, flanked by reporters, his face set in a mask of practiced admiration. He grabbed Tom by the hand, shaking it vigorously while the cameras began to fire, the bursts of light leaving white spots in Tom's vision. The mayor spoke, but his words were lost beneath the roar of the onlookers. He reached into a velvet box, pulled out a heavy gold medal, and stepped closer. Tom stood motionless, his heart still hammering, as the mayor carefully pinned the medal onto his chest. The metal glinted under the harsh sun, a stark contrast to the grime on his hands. The crowd erupted into a fresh round of cheering. Tom looked at the flashing lenses, the smiling faces, and the mayor's beaming expression. For a single, surreal heartbeat, the world seemed to tilt in his favor. He straightened his back, tilted his chin, and allowed a triumphant smile to spread across his face. He felt the weight of the gold against his ribs, convinced that despite the chaos of the morning, he had finally landed on the right side of luck. The cheering continued to swell, a wall of sound that seemed to lock the moment in place. Tom kept his grin fixed, his hand resting instinctively near the gold medal, basking in the sudden turn of his fortune. The mayor, still beaming, turned slightly to address the crowd, his gaze sweeping across the street. His eyes caught a scrap of paper taped to a rusted lamppost just a few feet away. The mayor stopped mid-sentence. He leaned in, squinting at the black and white print on the paper. The smile on the mayor's face didn't vanish all at once. It withered, sliding into a thin, tight line of confusion. He looked at the poster, then back at Tom, then down at the poster again. His head tilted, matching the angle of the face in the print to the man standing right in front of him. The surrounding noise seemed to drop away, muffled by a sudden, creeping awareness. The mayor stepped back, his hand dropping from Tom's shoulder. The camera flashes slowed, then stopped. A few people in the front row followed the mayor's line of sight to the lamppost. One by one, the cheers choked off, replaced by a heavy, suffocating quiet that pressed into the street. The silence in the street was absolute. The mayor pointed a trembling finger at the lamppost, then directly at Tom, The officer standing behind Tom wasted no time. He moved with practiced speed, stepping into the space Tom had occupied just seconds before. The heavy weight of a hand clamped onto Tom's shoulder, spinning him around before he could even think to run. Tom's arms were yanked behind his back. The metal of the handcuffs bit into his wrists, the sharp, mechanical click of the lock echoing through the quiet air like a gavel strike. His brief moment as a hero evaporated. The gold medal, still pinned to his chest, caught the light as he was shoved forward. The crowd surged backward, their earlier cheers replaced by murmurs of shock and judgment. Tom stumbled, his feet dragging against the pavement as the officer steered him toward the idling patrol car. He looked back once, but the mayor had already turned away, his expression hardening. The reality of the cold steel against his skin and the firm pressure on his elbows told the story better than any words could. His luck had run out, and the game was firmly over. The officer pushed Tom toward the open rear door of the cruiser. Tom hesitated, his feet scraping against the asphalt. He looked down at his chest, where the gold medal glinted under the harsh streetlights. It felt heavier now, a mocking weight against the fabric. He glanced up, past the rows of buildings and the flickering neon signs, toward the wide, indifferent expanse of the night sky. The clouds drifted slowly, oblivious to his failed schemes and his accidental rescue. He let out a long, ragged breath that misted in the cooling air. The officer nudged his back, impatient. Tom climbed into the tight, cramped space of the back seat. He leaned his head against the cold glass of the window, his wrists still locked in the steel cuffs. He stared at the metal one last time, then back at the darkening horizon. "Maybe crime just isn't my talent," he muttered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the car engine. The cruiser door slammed shut, cutting off the city sounds. The tires crunched against the pavement as the vehicle pulled away, leaving the intersection behind. The street returned to its usual rhythm. The gold medal now, just a forgotten scrap of metal in the shadow of the patrol car as it disappeared into the traffic.